Hello, goblins and ghouls, and welcome to my Haunted Life podcast. I'm your host, Angela Hartshorn, and on the next couple of episodes, I am taking you to Fort Smith, Arkansas, to explore some of its darker history. And it gets pretty dark. Starting off with the very intriguing Fort Smith Museum of History that has a little bit of controversy behind the hauntings. Hello, my darklings. How is everyone doing today? I hope it's great and wonderful because you are also great and wonderful and you freaking deserve it. Damn it, you deserve a great day. A little bit of housekeeping here. When this comes out, I'll be getting ready for the Santa Fe Renaissance Festival this weekend. I am losing my mind. If you are in the Santa Fe area for the weekend, come and say hi. Tell me a ghost story. I freaking love hearing people's spooky stories. I might even ask you to be on the podcast. You never know. I always get the best stories from the locals. And New Mexico has so much high strangeness. It's insane. I freaking love it. I was just discussing this with a friend who hates driving through New Mexico because they have seen some really weird shit that scared them to completely avoid driving through the state at night. I usually don't get a lot of time to do much exploring down there for this show in particular. It's busy season, and the Ren fairs take a lot out of me. Usually, the hubs and I do a hot springs trip, but this year we're saving up for more Seattle adventures in October. So yeah, come by and tell me your stories, and tell me where to visit, because I always, like to hear them anyways. Last I heard, tickets were sold out for Saturday. I heard Sunday as well, but I'm not 100% sure because I haven't checked Sunday. But I have a very reliable source that says so. So just double check before you come. As soon as I get back from the show, I have a witch crafting class at Kronk Art and Curiosities to teach you how to make your own witch teas. This is going to be such a fun class. And there's probably 5 million ways to make your own tea. I'm just teaching you the way I do it. So make sure to check out kronkartco.com to sign up. If you are in the Colorado Springs area, it is an in-person situation. The next show is Denver Oddities and Curiosities, September 28th and 29th, which is my birthday weekend. Which reminds me, I really need to start planning my haunted birthday weekend. Honestly, as much as I love staying up there, being able to hang out, sleeping in my own bed has become so nice. So we'll see what happens. If you can't make it out to the shows this fall, make sure to check out the website heartandhornstore.com for updates. And I have a bunch of new stuff coming out for autumn equinox. I'm so freaking excited. I'm excited to have them done. Well, keep an eye out over there. I have some really cool podcast bookkeeping, not just personal stuff this time. What? So, I'm going to be posting this in the group very shortly. But I have an upcoming interview with a very nice gentleman who knows a lot about Ouija boards. And these are always the favorites. So I'm definitely putting it out there to the group. Put your Ouija board questions in. More details to come there. But I'm really excited because I'm going to have a podcast coming up where I interview. Oh, and I'm geeking out about this one. Also, Still working on the details. It sounds like it. I mean, it's pretty official. I don't have my plane tickets yet, but I will be going to New York this October. It's going to be a whirlwind. Like, leave Thursday, and then come home Saturday morning in time for another class at Kronk. But I have been invited to co-host the premiere of a upcoming paranormal documentary called It's Coming, with my friend Tanya Brown from the Witch Daily Show podcast. So look for those details. Those are going to be posted really quick. Still trying to figure everything out, but I'm so freaking excited. We've been talking about this back and forth, and the fact that it's actually working out still is so exciting. But yeah, those are coming out. Keep an eye out for that, because it sounds like the plan is for our audiences to be able to ask questions to the family in the movie. And it's about this family who's been possessed or has been dealing with demons in their house. It's insane. And we're going to be able to you guys are going to be able to ask questions through us to them. So I'm so stoked. Official details will be coming out more, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on it because I'm really, really freaking excited about this one. It's going to be so cool. I thought spooky season was busy beforehand. It's even more insane now. Let me tell you. All right, I think that's it for housekeeping. I think this is enough housekeeping. I try to keep it under 10 minutes, and I don't want to talk about housekeeping anymore. So, on this week's episode, I am taking you to the Fort Smith Museum of History in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It is supposedly known for its hauntings, but those hauntings might not be what you think, as I found out later. For this podcast, I try to take you on the journey I did. So, let's get into it, shall we? Grab yourself a cup of tea, make sure the doors are locked and the bayonets are close by. I have a story to tell you. The Fort Smith Museum of History might just be one of the coolest freaking museums I have ever been in. It's your classic brown brick warehouse. It's much taller than the buildings around it, and it's literally painted on its side. Like, it has a sign that tells you very large what this building is. The museum website's description states, the museum was established in 1910 as the old commissary museum with the purpose of saving the city's oldest building from demolition, the 1930s commissary building, to the second Fort Smith. This is like right across the street. For decades, what is now the Fort Smith Museum of History was housed in that building. That building is now part of the Fort Smith National Historic Site. In the late 1970s, the FSMH moved to the Atkinson Williams Hardware Warehouse. Over the span of more than a century, the Fort Smith Museum of History's collection has grown to approximately 50,000 artifacts chronicling the city's and surrounding region's history. We strive to care, share, and preserve the collection, as well as the Atchison Williams Warehouse, our largest artifact, which houses the museum, which I thought was a cute way of putting. Constructed in 1906, the building is one of the only remaining warehouse structures in the Downhouse warehouse district of that era. Williams Hardware and later Spear Hardware occupied the structure through the late 1960s. The Fort Smith Museum of History, a 501c3 nonprofit institute, has occupied the warehouse since 1979, when the building was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. So there you go. It is technically in the other building. It was founded in 1910. It just moved over. So it is the oldest continually operating museum in the state of Arkansas. One of the coolest things about the museum is how much of it was locally donated. Like when they say that they're really about chronicling the city and surrounding region's history, they freaking mean it. Like a lot of the World War stuff came from families that donated Grandpa's journals and uniforms and whatever else he had laying around. And there's then a little excerpt about him. There's lots of little things like that. A lot of local stories made it into the museum, which it felt like a very local history. I thought that was really cool. I'm used to it being hundreds of years before. This is maybe not hundreds. I'm in Colorado, for God's sakes. But I don't know. It was just cozy feeling, if that makes sense. The third floor is probably the coolest. It's a miniature representation of Old Fort Smith's main street. And by miniature, I mean 8 foot by 8 foot recreated storefronts that you can walk into and see what would be in the shop. It's freaking adorable. It's really, really an ingenious way of preserving the history of the area. It's cool. The vibes of this place were not negative, but you knew you were being watched. There's an old feeling around. That feeling of knowing that someone was just around the corner, but when you go around the corner, there was no one there. We went during the week, me and the husband, and it was just the two of us, the front desk man, and maybe a few others. And that was, for the most part, all there was. Because we went during the week. It was dead. So, I don't know. It made the feelings of being watched even stronger. I don't know. It was a little strange. I kept waiting to run into somebody who was reading stuff. You just get that feeling when someone else is around. Almost never happened. I think we were there and then maybe two, or I think it was a group of 3 came in after us, and that was honestly about it. It was hard to tell if at times I was hearing footsteps or if it was pipes in a different room. I wasn't even sure when I felt like I was being watched, if maybe it was just old building with bad electrical grounding, EMFs, that kind of feeling. It was that. It was kind of confusing energy-wise. Was it haunted or was it bad EMFs creeping me out? I really had an issue. It didn't help that there's a whole room of antique creepy dolls. Y'all know how I feel about that. Luckily, I had picked up Haunted Fort Smith and Van Buren by Bud Steed, and these are the stories he reports from the museum. The warehouse worker. Often seen around the rear of the History Museum building, the spirit, which is sometimes referred to as the warehouse worker and at other times as the loafer, 2 names that seem a bit contradictory, is sometimes seen going through the motions of working at some task or another. Yet, at other times, it's simply lounging on the ground, leaning back against something that doesn't seem to be there. At first, I thought that perhaps there were 2 different spirits being mentioned, but after comparing the descriptions of him from several different accounts, it would appear that it is the same man. Said to be a tall, thin man in his late 20s or early 30s and dressed in the work clothes of someone from the 30s or 40s, he is seen only briefly before disappearing. As far as I have been able to determine, no one has ever had an interaction with him. Anyone who has ever seen him and tried to approach him or call out to him have stated that he doesn't seem to want to interact. He just disappears. At first, I thought maybe he was just simply a residual type of haunting. I've run across this phenomenon quite a few times. However, where a residual haunting has no awareness, this alleged spirit seems to be aware. On several of the accounts, he will raise his head from his task or turn to look at whoever called out to him before disappearing. This would suggest to me that he is aware and intelligent. He just doesn't want to be messed with. I mean, I can relate to that, let's be honest. But I'm still bothered by the fact that he seems to be going about some unseen task during the times when he is seen working. By the accounts that I've heard, he seems to be bent over as if working on something, doing the same task again and again before disappearing. No one has ever seen what he is working on. While I've heard the story about the worker from several different people over the years, I have no reason to doubt what they saw or think they saw. For me, the verdict is still out on this one. While I don't know anything about the paranormal, and you should be extremely careful of those who claim they do, this story contains elements of both a residual and intelligent haunting, and I've never run across an accurate story that had both. I'm afraid that in this case, I have to leave it up to you to decide if you think it is a true ghost sighting or just an urban legend. I thought that was a very interesting sidebar, because I'm like, there's like a lot of Irish stories like that immediately. Anyways, going back to Bud's writing, The Lady in the Window. Another alleged spirit sighting is that of the lady in the window, usually seen in the evenings and early morning hours, either before the museum opens or right after everyone has gone home. The image of a woman in a high-collar dress with her hair piled neatly on top of her head in a bun is seen standing on the second-floor window looking out at the street. She has been described as being a middle-aged woman, rather good-looking from a distance, and seems to be watching out the window. Whether she is simply watching people and traffic go by, or if she is watching for someone is unknown, as is who she might actually be. She can be seen from outside, moving from window to window sometimes, as if she's been walking around the second floor, pausing from time to time to look out the window. Since the place used to be a hardware and a warehouse, it would seem unlikely that a woman might have spent a lot of time there. Not impossible, but unlikely. So my thoughts are that she could quite possibly be attached to some artifact that the museum has in its possession. Several people have heard a woman's voice, soft and low, on the second floor, as well as sounds of a soft humming and singing. While there is no way to tell for certain, it could be the same woman. While two female spirits occupying the same building might not be that strange, two occupying the second floor of what used to be a hardware and warehouse is a little odd. The sound of quick footsteps, as if someone were walking in a hurry, are heard on the second floor as well. Not loud, thumping footsteps that might be made by a man in heavy work boots, but more of a light, fast step, which makes me think again of a woman seen looking out the window. I've also not heard of a woman being seen looking out the window on any other floor other than the second, which leads me to wonder if she might be limited in her wandering to just that floor for some reason. Interestingly, I have had one person who saw her looking out the window claim that she responded to him waving at her by waving back. All of the other accounts claim that she doesn't seem to pay attention to anything in particular and doesn't respond at all if someone waves at her. Maybe she just liked the look of the young man whom she waved at. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Slightly, I don't want to say like sexist, but a little old school. Honestly, if you hear me running through a hallway, it does not sound nice and feminine in any way, shape, or form. But, the boots probably don't help, but still. I just thought that was interesting. He continues, strangely enough, for a museum filled with historical artifacts, you would think that there would be dozens of paranormal accounts associated with the place. But it doesn't seem to be the case. A lot of people I spoke to were quick to tell me that there was a lot of activity in the building, but when pressed for details, there just wasn't a lot of information given past the usual type of voices, touching, and hair-pulling stories that everyone tells. Honestly, this is kind of what I encountered too. I thought that was interesting when he said that. So I was like, yeah, that's what I got. I'm going into that in a little bit. He continues, I wasn't able to come across anyone other than Adrian and Tina Scalf who witnessed anything really cool inside the old building. I couldn't find anyone who had seen an apparition inside the building, saw shadows or strange lights moving about the room, or anything else that was unique or especially interesting. What Adrian and Tina saw was a human-shaped shadow that seemed to be watching them all the time from about 12 feet away. That's way too freaking close for me. It would move when they moved, always keeping a distance between them. They also captured a few good EVPs in the room with the doll exhibit, because of course they freaking did it in the doll exhibit. They were getting intelligent responses to questions asked about the dolls, which was pretty impressive. But for the most part, for a place as cool as the Fort Smith Museum of History, with its working soda fountain and tons of artifacts, there just weren't a lot of interesting ghost stories associated with the place. So we went during the day, again, when there weren't a lot of people there. I was kind of surprised that they didn't have that many reports of hauntings. And it was pretty quiet, like I said, energy-wise. I felt my chest tighten, and I got a little heated near the section devoted to the Sisters of Mercy, which is funny now that my throat gets all goofied again. The Catholic nuns, but let's be honest, it's me. That kind of makes sense. And of course, I got creeped out with the doll collection. But that's about it. On the first floor, I got the most overwhelming energy stopping off on the second floor elevator. I couldn't speak. I got really dizzy, like full lightheadedness. I felt for an instant that I was going to black out. It just overwhelmed me. It was a little surprising. My husband was very confused about what the hell was happening. It hit really hard and quick, and then I took a couple steps from the initial point of interaction, and it was gone. I was fine. That was it. So, I don't know. Weird rush? Who knows? I walked around the exhibits, walked through the place that I had first felt it. I was wondering if there was maybe a heating vent, and I just started to overheat. But I do have issues with that. So I was like, maybe it's that. Or since, it's an old building with lots of artifacts on display, maybe there's some weird old wiring throwing off some weird EMF. I really need to travel with my little EMF detectors. But it had passed, and I couldn't find it again. So I wasn't sure what that was about. Since there was no one else on the floor with us, or so I thought, I decided to try a quick EVP session to see if anyone was around. All right. Hanging out in the Fort Smith History Museum. And we're the only one upstairs, so we're taking advantage of doing some EVPs. There's music coming from somewhere, but I can't tell if it's outside or what. The only ones upstairs are me and Jordan. So you might hear extra sets of footsteps for that reason. Is there anyone here that would like to say anything to us? Is there anyone connected to any of the artifacts here? Are you from Fort Smith? I know I keep walking around. Those footsteps are definitely Jordan. See all the tools, baby? No, they would let you in if you asked. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. I like the sign that says Tools by Village Blacksmith. I'm hearing other people coming up. Damn. So, did you hear anything? I know, it's disappointingly short. We had people come up the elevator, and I didn't want to contaminate anything. Now, the only thing that I couldn't explain is the weird mechanical buzzing noise that comes and goes in recording. I don't remember hearing it in person, because I think I would have paid attention to it. It's pretty obvious. My best guess is maybe an overhead light, but sadly, we didn't listen to the recording until after we had left, so I can't say for sure, but my guess is old light. We walked around the loop of the museum's second floor, and we're just about to the elevator again, and I started to feel that weird energy again. Not as strong, but all that fun chest tightening feeling, that arm-numbing sensation. We were in the really adorable On the Air section, where they rebuilt an old radio station from the early 60s. My husband could have spent freaking hours in there, which it was really cool, but there's lots of old cameras and equipment. It would make sense that, something EMF-wise is off. I felt really pulled to the section into the next one, which ended up being the hanging judge, Judge Isaac Parker's actual courtroom setup. It was eerie to say the least, and I will be going into the history of the hanging judge and a lot more in the next big episode. We're going to do a creepy, spooky snippet next week and then after, but I'll go into that kind of thing. But just to give you a little bit of backstory, I got this quick snippet from Wikipedia just to give you an idea of what we're working with here. In 21 years on the federal bench, Judge Parker tried 13,490 cases. In more than 8,500 of these cases, the defendant either pled guilty or was convicted at trial. So his courtroom was rather busy, to say the least. So it makes sense that there would be some weird energy around it. And again, we're going to go into that because there's so much of it. It's insane. It is so insane. It is honestly a really lovely little museum, but I desperately wanted to talk to someone about the hauntings. There was a very nice gentleman named Calvin working the front desk when I went to ask about the hauntings. I walked up to him and told him I had a silly question and asked him outright if the building was haunted. He just had this whole vibe of, oh no, what are these again? He sighed and leaned back in his chair, got nice and comfortable. It almost felt like when you would disappoint your teacher as a kid and they were about to tell you why, but that ended up not being the case. Calvin was quite lovely. He proceeded to tell me that he doesn't believe in that stuff. And yes, the building is haunted. I was very confused, and he could tell. He explained that he might not be sensitive enough to it to have his own experiences or however it works. But he himself has had 2 experiences in the museum that he cannot explain. He let me record him while he told the stories. We were talking about accents when the recording starts.
You don't recognize it, just like I don't recognize I've got one.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. My husband's grandfather is from here, so that's why I'm like, we get out here and I get it. So sorry. Okay, you said orbs?
Okay, I've seen orbs that are moving way too fast to be dust particles on video cameras that we've got in the building. I'll have to, I guess I'm going to have to say that's something other than dust floating, but I don't believe in all that.
Okay.
But we had a ghost hunter in here one time, and he had a camera deal set up, and he was pointed at that cash register over there.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And on this screen that he had on this camera thing, there was an outline, kind of like in the Predator movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like heat signature. There was like a heat signature of a human figure standing right next to that cash register.
Really?
So a guy comes in the front door. I'm sitting here. He needs to go to the gift shop. So I get up. He and I walk around the edge of that red car and go in the gift shop. When we come back out, he leaves. I said, come here, man. They took me over there and I watch it. Here's this. And this signature is still standing there.
Wow.
And when we walk into the range of that camera, as we go around this car, we've got the same heat signatures on the 2 of us walking around there as the one standing there. And there's nothing there.
Wow. Because that's a significant heat signature then.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's the only 2 things that I've experienced. There's other people that have heard and seen.
Wow.
People in the building on the upper floors. I mean, that's all I got.
I had to ask. And there's like a haunted something downstairs? It's a haunted house, though?
We used to do a haunted house downstairs.
Because I remember seeing that when I was like Googling, like a nerd.
Yeah, we used to have a haunted house at Halloween. We quit doing that. We do a trolley ride now and tell stories about stuff that happens in town. I mean, there was a guy that murdered his mother, cut her head off and put it in church up at the head of the avenue back in 1958.
Wow.
And there's other stuff like that that's happened around town. There's some buildings down on the historic district. It's got, supposedly you can see people standing up there that aren't there. The upper windows and so forth. But so we don't have the haunted house thing anymore, but.
No, it doesn't sound like you need it.
Yeah. And so.
I think the trolley ride sounds amazing.
There is a book that we used to have in the gift shop about haunted Fort Smith and Van Buren or something to that effect.
I think I bought that online.
And the guy that wrote that apparently didn't ask questions. He just wrote stuff because he told all kinds of stuff that he didn't get anything that we would have told him out of here. And he put a whole lot of stories about this building that I don't know where he got his information.
I was surprised how much there was. That's actually one of the reasons why we stopped in, because I did a digital buy real quick last night. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like I say, what he wrote stuff in there so I don't know whether the rest of the stuff he wrote was somewhat made up, because he made some stuff up about here that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's the stuff I love. Thank you. I love
But
hearing that part.
he got one right out of what was in here, but other, I guess, because I don't, like I say, I don't believe in that business. I'm not tuned in, I guess. I don't know.
Not yet. I mean, what do you think he got right?
There was one story that he wrote in there. I don't even remember which one it is now, but
because
that one has been talked about before.
Okay.
In here,
because I know I cheated and was like scanning real quick right before we got in here. I know there's one like a factory worker that shows up, and then a lady in a brown dress or something.
Maybe I know there's a little girl supposedly upstairs somewhere.
Oh,
that 2 or 3 different people have seen in here.
That is not in the book, unless I didn't read it very well.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. He missed all the stories that we knew about except one. He didn't put in the book, and the 3 or 4 other stories he put in there we never heard of before.
Wow.
I don't know where he got his information, but
Well,
that makes me wonder about the rest of his book too.
Yeah, no, that makes me, because we want to go over to the
one next door,
National
Park.
Yes, National Park. We want to go there next, and what he wrote on that was a lot.
And I don't know how much of that might be correct either. Because, like I say, he had some stuff in there. We were kind of shocked, because we'd never heard any of those stories except one of them.
No, good to know. Well, thank you so much. What is your name?
My name's Calvin.
Hi, Calvin.
Calvin Evans. Where are you from in Colorado?
Technically Manitou Springs. It's west of Colorado Springs.
I'm kind of familiar with the area a little bit. My brother lives in Colorado Springs.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. I like how we go across the country and find people that kind of know where we live every time. It makes me giggle. But no, thank you so much. I'm going to be honest. I'm a bit disappointed to hear about my little book. I feel like those books they usually have the best information. So I was a little downtrodden about doing an episode on the museum. So I really wanted to find something worthwhile other than the cash register story. I found this article from KSFM Channel 5 News from 2012 that I wish I had before I met my new friend Calvin. The article reads as followed. Located in the 1907 Atchison Williams Warehouse building, the museum hosts more than 35,000 artifacts in its collection. Standing 4 stories tall, many employees say they remain fearful of the museum's 3rd floor. The 3rd floor is an employees-only section full of old historic artifacts and is barred off from the public, perhaps with good reason. Lisa Garmlick, the Fort Smith Museum's executive director, says many of the museum's haunting tales come from that part of the building. Garmlick says one of her most frightening experiences happened one day as she arrived on the 3rd floor. And remember, this is the freaking executive director of the museum. We got off the elevator and heard a child's voice plain as day, like a child running and yelling. Playing is what it sounded like, and I even walked from the elevator back to the back here and said, "Who's up here?" And I hear the voice jump from that corner to this corner. So I came over here and there was nothing here, says Gremlick. The 3rd floor is also home to an old voodoo doll that many are frightened of. That's because every time they've attempted to take a picture of it, the museum employees say a light covers it up, preventing it from being seen. The 3rd floor isn't the only spooky area, though. Other paranormal investigators report getting sudden cold chill in the museum's basement. On the 2nd floor, some have also said they've seen a child's face out of the corner of their eye. The second floor is also home to the old furniture from Fort Smith's hanging judge Isaac Parker. In this area, many have reported suddenly hearing the slam of a gavel when no one is around. Gramlich says many ghost legends show spirits have attached themselves onto old items and possessions. If that's true, with more than 35,000 items in the Fort Smith Museum collection, there are bound to be at least a few ghosts lurking around the building. I am always surprised when someone like the executive director of the History Museum is willing to come forward and talk about the haunted history of a place. That's so freaking cool. There is something so legitimizing about it. Apparently, the Fort Smith Museum of History is really open to fun stuff like that too, because they used to hold a haunted house in the basement called the Blood on the Border Haunted House every October. You can see the remnant of a creepy cloth over the stairs leading to the basement when you use the stairs instead of the elevator. My buddy Calvin says they aren't doing that anymore, but instead they do a murder and mayhem trolley ride where you ride around on a trolley hearing stories of the dark history of Fort Smith, which just sounds freaking amazing. Calvin told me that that's where the real stories are. Remember him mentioning the story of the guy that cut his mom's head off and left it at the church? Don't worry, I found that story, and it's going to be the spooky snippet next week. And it's interesting. I desperately want to go on a trolley ride. So that whole thing just sounds freaking amazing, and I love it. So if anyone is in the Fort Smith area and has gone or will be going, please let me know. I'm really freaking curious. And, go visit the museum and see if you get any spooky feelings. Thank you to everyone out there listening today. My Haunted Life podcast is written, researched, produced, edited, and hosted by me, Angela Hartshorn. All of my sources will be... let's be honest, I post everything on the Patreon. It works the best. So make sure to subscribe to the Patreon. You can do that for as little as $2 a month. Technically, I think you can join for free and just get the free content, which most of it is, let's be honest. But if you want to support the show, you can do it for $2 a month. I always appreciate everyone. And if you have any information, maybe you did the trolley ride, I would love to hear about the trolley ride. Oh my god. Email me at myhauntedlifepodcast@gmail.com or write me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the YouTube, whatever. While you're there, please like and follow and comment. It always makes my freaking day. And yeah, again, don't forget the podcast group. There's so much stuff that's going to be going on with Ouija board discussions and freaking, the paranormal documentary coming up. All that information is going to be in there. It's going to be amazing. Don't forget to check it out. And that's it for this week, my dears. I hope you have a wonderful week. And until next time, stay spooky.